Hello, everyone, and welcome to Politically Incorrect Knitters. My name is Pinkava, joined as always by the lovely Deplorable Knitter.
Hi, everyone.
We have Hunter Biden, we have knitting, we have all the good newsy stuff, we have my fabulous Black Hills vacation, because I will always shill for my state. But starting with knitting.
Starting with knitting. Well, I talked about this last week, but as a reminder, because it's going to be coming out on the 28th, I have my stained glass diamonds hat pattern, which is going to be available on the 28th. And it's lovely coordinating cowl, which isn't quite exactly the same. It's got a little bit different pattern. And if you follow me on Instagram, make sure you join. Make sure you not join, but make sure you enter the giveaway, because you will have the opportunity to win a 100-gram skein of natural yarn and a 50-gram skein of the green dog whistle. So try it out. Try your luck, see what you get, because you might win. And then I'm pathetic, okay? This test is due November 1st, and here's my sweater.
Yay!
It's not quite as far as I had hoped it would be. It's still very lovely. I mean, the yarn is pretty. It's knitting up very nicely. But I have failed to actually make it into anything that's resembling a sweater yet. Currently, it's a neckline. It's a collar. Maybe it's my Ruth Bader Ginsburg collar. I don't know. It's
maybe. Ooh.
And then
kind of tuck it into your coat and pretend you have more under there.
And then part of the reason I haven't been working on that is because I started a new design. I mentioned on Instagram that a couple weeks ago, I was able to go to a fiber festival in person. And while I was there, I picked up this skein. It's called Inky Tattoo, and it's from Fiber Me This. It is lovely. And I've had this cabled hat pattern started on a different color yarn for a really long time. But when I saw this yarn, I knew it was going to actually be this pattern, because it told me when I was holding it at the thing. So
wow, it's really pretty.
That's part of why I haven't actually worked on my sweater. So the next couple of days, I'm going to buckle down. And I think once I separate for the sleeves, it'll go a lot faster, because then I can do it while I'm homeschooling, or while, like, in the evening when the kids are getting ready for bed, and things like that.
Right.
But right now there's counting and there's thinking, and I have to switch needle sizes, and I can't do that right now. So
right, takes more thinking.
But once I get it split for the sleeves, I'm hopeful that I will actually get it done. Doesn't mean I will, but hopefully at least by the end of the test, it will be close enough that I won't be, a disappointment to Knitting McBurley. So that's my goal.
Dishonor.
I don't want to disappoint her. I've never done a sweater test knit before. I would like to be asked to again someday. So,
right.
I want to try.
Uh-huh.
But
don't want to let
that's what I've been working on. So what about you? Did you do any vacation knitting?
I did. First of all, I finished the cowl for my mother. And since it's in her possession now, I don't have to have any spoiler warnings for her. But it turned out really, really nicely. And it's really cool. As I said before, it's a large square, and there's buttons down one side, and there's eyelets for buttonholes on the other side, but also along either side. So you can put it in whichever configuration you like, either just around or sort of triangular down, or whichever way. So it's really cool. And I got some, and the buttons are really cool too, because they're all sparkly and blue and stuff. I don't know if they're showing up very well, but they're very pretty, and I was very pleased to use them.
Awesome.
Other than that, oh, and I didn't mention last week about the green alien small creature hat that I finished. That was also there's going to be a picture and no actual thing because I gave it to its recipient. And it was cool, but I'm glad it's over with. Otherwise, I still working on my big
Sweater.
sweater. I'm almost to the sleeves again, which, you know, is the point where I pulled it out last time, but I tried them on. They're actually nice. You know, I've gotten yarn wise, I've gotten further than I have before because from where I pulled out, it was smaller. So I know that I've knit more than I have previously. And also little red, white, and blue shorty socks with the afterthought heel I haven't put in yet. And my idea of like putting in like a pearl pattern so it said Trump, I didn't do that. I was vacation knitting and just knitting in the round, not paying much attention to anything else. But yeah, so they're nice. You can't even see that they're blue. One second. Still going. There's blue in there somewhere, I promise.
I can see it. It looks nice. No, they're fun.
Yeah, but that's all I've been working. Oh, and not to promo too much because we know my bad track record for that. But I started charting out the larger Betsy Ross flag for the patriotic quilt that we have.
Very cool.
So
very, very good. I think after the end of the test knit sweater, I will have to get back on squares too. I just all of a sudden, past couple of weeks, I've had a ton of inspiration and I've just been knitting everything I can think of. Like things are just exploding on my brain faster than I can knit them. So I think that happens to all of us from time to time. Hopefully they'll calm down a little. Oh, and I'll have some Christmas knitting to do. So in between the Christmas knitting, I'll work on that stuff. But I don't think I do Christmas knitting nearly as aggressively as you do. So, but I was, my husband and I went on a date on Friday night and I had my knitting because he knows me, so I don't have to like impress him. I can bring my knitting.
Right.
He knows what he's gotten into. And I showed him this cabled hat and I was like, you know, because he was talking about how he likes this one black, just plain knit hat that he has. It's a store-bought hat. He said, you never made me a black one. I was like, well, because you wear that black one, and I didn't think you needed another one. He goes, well, if you made me one, I would wear that instead. And I'm like, all right. Well, I had been thinking about giving this to him, and he told me that it was too fine and that it looked girly, that he wanted it made out of like chunky yarn. And I'm like, dude, but I totally, this is like grays, dark grays with a couple of like green speckles on it and stuff. It's not like it's, you know, pink or something.
Right.
He's like, no. I'm like, fine. So now
that is, I mean, I've mentioned it before, but that's why many of the beanies that I've made for sale is knit to, purl to, rib, the majority of it, and some sort of symbol on the side because it is so difficult. You're like, well, I want, like, you'll go into like men's stores and they'll have like, oh, this is a lovely cabled pattern. Yeah, I'll wear that off the shelf, off the rack. But generally, if you then knit someone, you know, knit a guy a really fancy sweater or hat or something, then suddenly it's uncool. Like, ugh.
Yeah, no, and my husband my head is bigger than his, right? And he has a very specific way he likes his hats to fit. They have to be really snug to his scalp and they have to come just to his earlobes. So like if you get your gauge off at all, it's not right. And then he's not happy about it. So I made him one for our anniversary last year and it's about a half inch too short. And so he doesn't like to wear it because he's constantly pulling it down. And I'm like, well, I made it short on purpose because you always complain that they're too long.
Right.
No, it's too short. I mean, come on. So anyway, that might be, I'm knitting that hat in DK. It might also be available in worsted weight depending on how much I feel like my husband deserves that. So we'll see what happens. Because right now I don't think he deserves any of it. Whatever.
Like, no.
Because he totally ruined my plan. I was getting ahead because he has a birthday in December too. So I have to like plan ahead a lot for him.
Right.
He kills me. Anyway.
Oh, bummer.
Sorry.
That's okay.
my rant. And why don't you give us a little a synopsis of your trip? What you
Oh,
guys do?
yes.
What you see?
Yes. Here I am staring off into space, totally forgetting. No, my trip was a lot of fun. Went to the Black Hills, which I said, which positively gorgeous. Like, you know, one of the things that always strikes me when I go to the Black Hills is, you know, not to knock New Zealand or anything, but there is not a scene in Lord of the Rings that could not have been filmed in the Black Hills in the surrounding areas. Like, you could,
That's
all of
funny.
it, the crystal caves, any of underground mountains, Edoras, Gondor, all of it could have been filmed in the Black Hills. It is.
You know, I was looking through some of your pictures on Instagram and I noticed how, like, okay, so everybody's seen Mount Rushmore, but then the other stuff that you were posting is not like, when you say Black Hills, I kind of think of like the mountains I've seen on the East Coast, and they're not like that. And it's really interesting to me.
Right, right. That you do have more direct mountainous areas, but then it's just like spires of rock and mountains and there. And
Right.
and then from it's on my shirt, Harney Peak. Woohoo. We spent an entire day climbing up to Harney Peak, which is the highest spot in the Black Hills. And it's also cool because the tower, there's several fire watchtowers, which were put in the 30s in the CCC, which is Civilian Conservation Corps. So it was that their job, it was a government program. You know, everybody's out of work. It's the 30s. Get all these young men out there, and then they built fire roads. They built tourist things like well, Harney Peak is a fire tower, but that it became a tourist thing in Sylvan Lake and all those things. And my grandfather was in it, and he was part of the team that built Harney Peak. So it's kind of a woohoo. We have to
Oh,
do it
that's
for our
cool.
family thing. But yeah, it is.
A matter of family pride.
Yeah, matter of family pride. Ugh. Because we're, you know, so my brother is a hiker. The rest of my family are not. And they're like, oh, it's a 3 to 4 hour hike, it says on the sign. It took us 7 hours. We were
God.
exhausted. That's a lot of uphill climbing and sharp, pointy rocks. And you know, and luckily it wasn't too windy of a day because, you know, that wind will come across and blast you. But yeah, you know, so climbing Harney Peak was or I guess now it's technically called Black Elk, whatever, but Harney Peak. So that, the Badlands were incredible. It was incredibly windy that day, so we were almost blown off the cliff there. But yeah, that you have the Badlands, which you have the layers of, you know, rock deposit, and it's like red lines across them all. And there's Door Path, which is, we went out a little bit on it, but it's all of these white stones with like little dappled holes throughout them, and you're jumping from rock to rock and hoping it's not a rattlesnake day, because that's not impossible. And
Oh, that sounds horrifying.
oh, it was a little horrifying. We didn't stay there long. Like, it was really
I would.
neat, but it was kind of a chilly day, so you hope that there's not a big rattlesnake thing. But you know, on the dangerous part of our state versus the eastern side where there's no rattlesnakes. Yeah, but that, you know, through Needles Canyon, or Needles Highway, Spearfish Canyon is incredibly beautiful. There's little streams and rivers and waterfalls going through the whole thing, and huge trout that you can see casually. And yeah, it's a really neat place. And it was also really interesting, besides just saying it's beautiful countryside, because it is beautiful countryside. But you know, tourism has taken a hit, but like in a weird way. There was a lot of tourists when we went this past week, and normally it's not tourist season. Normally things tend to close in October because summer's over. It's getting cold now. It snowed while we were there, so that's no time to be doing tourist things. But tourism, so like some businesses and restaurants had closed down, but many of them, many of them closed down for the season. Some seem to be closed down permanently. But that things that would have been closed down for the season, many of them were still open, because there's been such a tourist demand in the area.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, there's tons of Colorado, Utah plates, Montana, a lot of Minnesota. That there's a lot of Florida and Texas, surprisingly. But yeah, we played, the find all of the license plates game, and I think we were only shy by like 5 or 6. Yeah,
fun.
it was interesting. And also that there were, when we went to Mount Rushmore, because it's Mount Rushmore, why would we not? But how many people who were wearing Trump hats, or a lot of people around just wearing any flag shirt whatsoever, and lots of Trump flags around. Some Biden signs, but not, there's like a Trump flag on every corner and just the Biden guy in protest.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I'm really jealous of the Mount Rushmore picture that you posted. Like, I'm just so, man,
I know.
I want to go and visit. I don't know if it'll happen this year because of COVID, but
right.
At some point in time, Anne and I are going to do an episode, and we're going to be sitting next to each other like some of those other podcasters you see, and it's going to be weird.
What? I don't believe it.
Someday.
How can that even be so?
Well, like I said, not anytime soon, but someday it will happen.
Yep. We'll get to that point. We'll work up to it.
Exactly.
Oh, so, and because I forgot why I put this entire book on my lap, that there was a fun little Scandinavian store. So they got the big book of Norwegian knitting designs 90 years later.
On their shelf.
Yeah.
Obviously.
There's like everything you could ever want. You got sweaters, you got mittens, you got little dancing girl motifs. You have a little booklet in the back with more sweaters and mittens and motifs.
Oh my good gracious.
I know.
You're gonna be busy.
No, I'm not. I'm going to pet it instead of just, I want to be busy. I'm going to be busy with other things and then dream many dreams of this book until I can get to it.
I think that's the trouble or the plight of every crafter, that we all have those things that we want to pet and touch, and someday we'll be able to do them.
Yep. Someday I'll get there, but it's not today.
Not this year. Hey, maybe 2021 will be kinder. Knock on wood, how much worse could it get?
Could get pretty bad.
Oh yeah, depending on some stuff that's coming up soon, like the election.
Yeah,
and the hideously corrupt Bidens. Mm-hmm. Hideously corrupt. I can't even believe the stuff I've heard lately.
Good segue to the Bidens. I was just thinking about how one of the local towns are canceling Christmas. So, and do you think I'm joking? No.
I'm surprised that more stuff isn't canceled in New York. Mm-hmm. When Anne tells me that things are getting canceled, and like, she told me this bizarre thing about people handing out Halloween candy with like tongs or gloved hands. And I'm like, no, they're not even making us do that in New York. Come on.
The city council is recommending, so for downtown businesses, was this little chamber of commerce. Oh, isn't this great? We're helping with COVID. I have to remember that you have normally downtown, they do this thing where you trick or treat, for kids, and you can go around to all the little downtown businesses. And they say that, first of all, you need to have a table outside, meaning that you have to pay an employee to sit at the table outside instead of just at the counter where you normally would in a downtown business. And that person has to have candy in a bag and either has to put it on the table in front of you with a gloved hand or tongs. And then when the kid then takes the candy, you have to sanitize after them.
It's messed up, girl.
Yeah, well, this is also the same town that is now saying that we should shut down all restaurants, any indoor seating. because this until Christmas, because this season hasn't been crap for businesses at all. I'm so glad that so many of our restaurants and other small businesses and it's a difficult town for restaurants anyways, that I'm sure everyone will survive. I'm sure that we'll all come out happy and cheery and paying taxes. Thank you, city council. And they have a Democrat majority, so even in South Dakota, like honestly, I think I may have mentioned this, but the last city council meeting with the mask mandates, they said that you had over an hour of people talking, saying that there shouldn't be mask mandates, in which the city council members played on their phones and then read prepared speeches that they had at the end and put it through anyways.
It's a total miscarriage of justice kind of thing. Okay, maybe
Mm-hmm.
not miscarriage of justice because it's a city council meeting, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
It's a bunch of nonsense. It's totally, these
it
people
is.
have an agenda. They're going to put their agenda forth whether or not people like it. They don't really give a crap what anyone says, and it's really ridiculous.
Well, it's a complete disrespect to their constituents. That, oh, do you represent the people? Well, no, because you just, sent the constituents packing. You said that you know better for the health of others than they do. You are essentially in charge of every business in the city and every person's own individual body. That you know better about the health of individuals than individuals know themselves.
I read something about Hunter Biden, and I've only seen it in one place, and I don't know how accurate it is. So it's a little, I don't know, but so on the news this morning, or yesterday morning, it's hard to remember when, but I heard that the reason that Hunter Biden left his computers where they were is because he was so high or drunk when he dropped them off that he didn't know where they were. I mean, that's based on what the man said who ran the shop where they were taken. So right. I would assume it's fairly accurate, but yeah. So I just don't understand how this dude, his father is running for office. Biden never has heard anything about anything. And it is totally damning. The whole thing is full of nonsense. It's full of, appointments with China, like Hunter getting $10 million for, introducing his dad to some Chinese guy and stuff. And the whole Biden's just, I don't know anything about it. I don't know anything about my son's business, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. And a business model in which Joe gets half. That this is how they launder money.
It is true because, I can't say it's true because I don't know, but I just saw a very interesting thing that was shared by Donald Trump Jr. right before you and I got on. And it showed that in 2016, the Bidens brought in a little under $400,000 in a year. From 2017 to 2019, they brought in $16.5 million. So I don't know what they're doing to go from 400,000, which is pretty good salary for a lot of people, to 16.5 million. But I mean,
and especially when previously Joe Biden was vice president and suddenly he's not vice president and he's raking in millions. It sort of,
and it's not like he's, giving speeches like the Clintons did and stuff where you would see them out all the time. And Joe's been living in his basement for quite some time. I mean, he wasn't seen until the presidential stuff. I mean,
right. Well, I was about to say that it does smack a lot of Hillary, that you have the Clinton Foundation where, going around giving speeches about diarrhea in Africa for millions of dollars. And it was all on the come. It was all, well, if I give money to the Clinton Foundation, that means that this and that country, who generally don't like us, will have some influence in the American presidency because of how much they had donated to the Clinton Foundation. And then you have the Bidens didn't even go the foundation route. They went the money launder through the kids route. Give my kid a job, and that is how we're going to make money. And I mean, there's, people people have a certain amount of sympathy for Hunter Biden. You know, guy's addicted to drugs. You know, that's, you know, drug addiction is hard and everything. But a lot of my sympathy kind of ends when he is reported to have given money in connection to human trafficking, as in for giving money for people. Like that,
Right.
my sympathy just, there it went. And especially since there is rumors of, again, rumors, but the the laptop itself and what is on it is pretty well substantiated. And not only that, but Hunter Biden's lawyer asked for it back. And you don't ask for things back when they're not yours. So, you know, you're not just like, oh, I heard this rumor that you may have said that this laptop belonged to my client. So,
Yeah.
yeah, that
No,
doesn't
it's
really
some
work.
messed up stuff. And
Right.
from what I've read, and like I said, I've only seen it like shared in a couple places. Like I haven't read an article that states all of this information, so I don't want to say it's true, but like if Biden were to win, it would be terrible because it sounds like China has some horrible dirt on Hunter being like a pedophile and a rapist kind of thing.
Yes.
And so then his dad is going to be the president. That just sounds really, really bad for the US.
Right.
It's bad.
That's why I was trying. Yeah,
That's what you were trying to say in not so many words. No, let's say it. That's what I read.
let's say that. That's it. That's what I was building up to, but then I lost my thought. You got it. But there you go. You know, you can't really change political candidates at this point in the game, but what a guy to put forward. Surely somebody knew. You would hope.
Anne, you know that everybody knows. Why do you think that Twitter works so hard to keep it off of their platform? And why do you think Facebook has worked so hard? And why do you think that all of a sudden those guys are going to be in front of Congress now, or the Senate, or whomever? I always get confused about which ones they're going from, but they're going there and they're going to talk to lawmakers. So whatever.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well, like, there was a story, the New York Post came out with a Hunter Biden story and was totally shut down by Twitter. And then not only was the New York Post shut down by Twitter, but the press secretary was shut down by Twitter. And the Trump campaign was shut down by Twitter. And it's amazing how Trump is called the authoritarian ones, but none of Biden's people are ever shut down by Twitter. How remarkable.
And how much time has the mainstream media spent on that story?
Oh,
how much time? Not at all.
Nothing.
So therefore, you know that they're all colluding with each other, Russia collusion kind of nonsense. They're all working together to make it work, to make Biden look like he's okay, and he's just not.
Yeah. And the fact that you can shut down a story about corruption in the Biden family, and something I mentioned to you earlier, that there was a man in France he was a teacher, and he showed Muhammad cartoons to the kids in his class to talk about free speech and to bring up the Charlie Hebdo incident. And then one of his students' parents beheaded him. Like beheaded him in the street. And that man took pictures and video and put it on Twitter. Twitter was not able, for some reason, to shut down those pictures and video and say, hey, that shouldn't be shared around. No. Anything like that, you can share that on Twitter. But a New York Post story about political corruption in election season, that's what you scratch. That's what you're done with.
And this whole Hunter Biden thing, I mean, they should all be investigated. And if one of the Trump children had been found with any of those pictures of, even with them with that crack or meth pipe next to them, oh my God, it would be all you would hear about. It would be the only thing that anybody could talk about. And it's just so insane that not a word is being spoken. Like everybody's, well, I can't talk about that. like, it's really, if you were unsure beforehand about the election or what's going on, this should be a huge wake-up call. Although then again, if you only watch mainstream media, you have no idea that it's even happening.
Right. And there's a lot of circular reasoning too, that people in the Biden campaign, that some people are asked, oh, what about this Hunter Biden story? Oh, it's false, it's fake. But supposedly blaming Russians for getting this laptop doesn't make it any less true, even though it wasn't Russians.
No, it wasn't Russians. It was a
Right.
drunk Hunter Biden. But hey, that part just
hey.
doesn't matter.
Right. But the circular reasoning, because Twitter banned this story, that is what makes it untrue, because Twitter knows best. Like, Twitter doesn't know best, and how could they have even had time to know that the story was false? It had just come out. That you have things like that, and it's like, no, it must be false because Twitter said so. Well, why do we trust Twitter? Well, what else is there in this world to trust, apparently?
It's really, really disturbing how they are just so willing to censor anything that could hurt Biden. And Trump, they'll wish death on that guy, but heaven forbid somebody find out that Biden's not squeaky clean.
Right. That you'll have former Hillary staffers actually threaten Trump's life, or not threaten Trump's life, but actively wish him to be dead. Yes. That it's oh, that's okay. Oh, any threat to Trump or Trump supporters. I saw a video this past week of a man who was punched in the mouth, so he lost his front teeth by Antifa. Yeah. And then after that, they put up posters to mock him further, saying that this man is a fascist. Missing my front teeth, ha ha ha, because I was at a fascist rally. I'm like, oh. And Joe Biden saying that Antifa isn't an organization, it's an idea. Well, it's a really crap idea. Just saying.
And I've never seen an idea that wreaks that much havoc. Just,
I know. And it's so horrible and newspeak. Of course, of course I'm anti-fascist. Everybody's anti-fascist. Yeah. And
newspeak. I just finished reading 1984 and I was seriously disturbed by the end at how much of it is what's happening now. It's just, I don't know. I kind of totally related to the guy who's like, yes, there's hope. And then nope, there was no hope. It's just really, it seems what it is right now.
Orwell, while he was horribly accurate, was also a socialist. So maybe there's something in his worldview that he missed.
I didn't know he was a socialist.
He was. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because I'm also in the middle of Animal Farm right now, and that is also a seriously disturbing story. Mm-hmm. And there was this long forward about how it was like a fairy tale, and I'm reading it going, this is a horrifying fairy tale. How can this get classified as one?
This is the worst fairy tale I ever read. This isn't even one of those creepy fairy tales where young women get eaten. This is just sad.
It's just horrible.
I remember once, when I was in high school, and a friend of mine, who I was homeschooled at the time, and she went to public school. And
you still had friends?
I still had friends. Whoa. And anyways, I was messaging back and forth with her, and she said that she had read Animal Farm, or she was reading Animal Farm for class. And I had already read Animal Farm. So I'm like, oh, sure. How do you like it? And she's like, well, they say that this is supposed to be a book about communism, but I don't see where the communism is. I'm like,
really?
You've had a serious disservice in your education. The entire thing is communism, all of it.
Yeah,
and maybe
the whole thing.
Right. And I mean, you need a certain amount of, I guess, knowledge of communism at all to understand what it is. But whatever that was had not been sufficiently explained to her. Like, she wasn't an unintelligent girl, but she's like, I don't see what's happening. I'm like, ooh.
Really? I mean, like, I'm only partway into it, but the pigs have moved into the house, and that's kind of like the ruling class is getting a little bit big for their britches there. Like,
Right. Right.
I think I've still got because I listen to audiobooks. I say I'm reading, but I really listen to stuff because I just don't have enough time to sit down and read books because my family needs to eat. And I'm that person who, once I sit down with a book, I won't do anything until it's done. So I have combated that with audiobooks. It's easier to put those down when people are talking to me. But
yeah. On my vacation, I brought with me Till We Have Faces by C.S. Lewis, and it's supposed to be a retelling of the story of Psyche and Cupid. But while I'm really enjoying it, I only have the barest knowledge of the story of Psyche and Cupid, so I feel woefully ineducated as I feel like I'm missing things, that I get where this story is going because, again, I know the Cliff Notes version, but I'm feeling very...
Yeah, so, I mean, the stuff going on with the Bidens is just horrifying and awful. And sometimes I just wonder how people, well, I was going to say how sane people, but I guess the problem is that Trump derangement syndrome is so prevalent nowadays that it doesn't necessarily apply.
Well, it is. It is very prevalent. And also the sort of echo chamber thing that if you don't ever interact with someone who disagrees with you, or if you only interact with people who disagree with you and consider anything they say to be wrong always, that there's not a consideration of there may be reasons why you believe this. There's a lot of people who I disagree with, but to bring up examples, people who, look at Trayvon Martin as a saint, for example.
It's just really funny that you brought him up because today I saw something about a pastor. Is that where you're going with this?
Yes, that's where I was going with that. Somebody legitimately, no joke, no nothing. We can bring up the tweet if you feel like you need to, but no joke, had communion with Trayvon's Last Supper with Arizona tea and Skittles. Like they did this with earnestness and said that this was a real spiritual moment before Trayvon's crucifixion. Okay? And here's the thing. Maybe because there is no scripture about this moment that before we canonize it, that maybe we should read the police report. And part of the police report was that he was hitting a man's head against the pavement. That should probably be considered before we make him any sort of saint and or deity, because you're not like comparing him to Joseph, you're comparing him to Christ. Yeah. Maybe we should, you guys are all the way up here, you need to be way down here, because maybe
you might not know exactly what you're talking about, so maybe do a little more research.
And not only that there is so much of sort of a mythos, like sort of that he is now this wonderful figure. I'm not saying he should have died, but I'm saying that the guy wasn't a saint. Obama saying he could have been my son, or all of this stuff, and just like, well, did we take a look at the evidence? Did we take a look at what happened, the police report, the everything else that happened here? And are we going to take circumstances like this, like the Michael Brown incident again, the hands up, don't shoot? And I remember that after that incident, that they were going to do a play of this. And isn't this great? And all the actors showed up, but the play was based on the police report, and hands up, don't shoot never happened. So it wasn't in the play. So here's an actor who wants to play this iconic line, again, urban mythos that's like, but that didn't happen. So it's not going to be in our play. Well, and then the actors left.
And then like even more recently with Jacob Blake there, everybody put his name on their helmets, but nobody like bothered to notice that he had a restraining order against him, and he went to this woman that either he
He's
had raped her or he raped her while he was there, but then they are all putting his name on his helmet. Like I don't understand where these stories get so misconstrued. Like people like they take this narrative that's not quite right and then they twist it, and all of a sudden it's the story that just never happened.
Right. Breonna Taylor, the same thing. And there's other incidents too. I mean, this is a common, that there are certain things where it's like, oh, well, again, you want to look at other people. You don't want to shut them out. You want to be understanding. You want to understand where you're coming from. You want to hear different perspectives. But things such as that, but there's actually concrete facts that do not fit.
There's a lot of people who aren't drinking the Kool-Aid. Like, I don't follow basketball, but I happened to read an article about Game 6 of the NBA Finals had 6 million viewers. Okay? And that was a game with LeBron James. So I guess he's a big draw for basketball games. Like, he gets more viewers than usual. And last year, Game 6 of the NBA Finals had like 12 or some like twice as many or more than they did this year. And my brother and I were talking about it because he didn't believe me when I told him.
Right.
So I had to like look up the article and tell him I was like, no, it's really true, I swear. And he heard later on that the commissioner or whomever runs basketball was like, yeah, we're probably not going to do that Black Lives Matter stuff next year because it ruined them. I mean, COVID didn't help, and they were playing the finals, I think, at a weird time. I don't think they usually play this late in the year or whatever, but or maybe they do, but like I know that the season was awkward because of COVID and those things, but even with that, people just aren't having it anymore. And I don't know. I really don't know what's going to happen with the election. I want to like say, yes, Trump is going to win. There's enough silent majority. But I don't know. Stuff is so messed up, and this mail-in voting and all these people who are getting duplicate ballots. And I just don't know what's going to happen. And it's freaking me out.
I think it would be a lot more obvious for the NBA and the NFL that fans are not on board for Black Lives Matter, for segregated national anthems, for any of that, if there were people in the stands.
There's a segregated national anthem?
Yes, that you have the Black national anthem versus, I guess.
I didn't even hear about that, but my husband and
It's a little bit of an old story, but yeah.
My husband is a huge football fan, but once they started doing the kneeling and nonsense, we stopped watching, so I don't even know.
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if that was just a one-time thing or if they kept it up. But yeah, that was definitely a thing, which is crazy racist. Just putting that out there. But that I think it would be much harder to get away with this stuff if there were fans in the stadium. But as of today, numbers for Trump are looking good in early voting, which is surprising because early voting isn't normally a very Republican thing. So there's hope in the numbers back and forth.
Well, and I just saw Donald Trump Jr. posted on Instagram just an hour or two ago that 50 Cent has come out in support of President Trump because he was looking at Biden's tax numbers and he's like, what is this? Like, for real. So, I mean, that was some crazy people have been coming out for Trump. Like last week it was Ice Cube, because the reason he went for Trump is because he had a plan to help Black people, and he sent it to the Democrats and the Republicans, and the Democrats go, oh, well, we'll talk to you about this after the election. And the Republicans go, oh, the president's already got this platinum plan. Let's see what we can work into it. And so, you know, just such a large contrast made him kind of rethink what he had going on too. So pretty interesting stuff.
Again, it's last week's stories, but in case you didn't see, it was then I lost it. Jack Black said that Joe Biden was punk rock. Because he is so cool out there with his, photo sunglasses and his jeans, and he's so cool. He is just wow. Like, golly, Jack Black. And then on the other side, Johnny Rotten, actual punk rock, is voting for Trump because he thinks Trump is a real guy and he's straightforward. I think he said he was voting for Trump last time, but
I don't remember hearing it last time, but I did see him come out for him this time. But
don't get more punk rock than that.
I know, right? And Anne and I have talked a couple of times about different new young conservatives that are voting against like establishment Democrats. And there's a new guy in Maxine Waters' district. Have you seen his ad, Anne?
No.
His name is Joe. He is awesome. He is a Navy veteran. He shows you where Maxine Waters lives. He shows you her $600 million mansion or whatever it is. And then he shows the neighborhood in LA where he lived. That was like he survived a drive-by in, and then he went into the Navy and he came back and he's like, I want to fix this for people who really live here. She doesn't live in her district. And so it's just, seeing the new wave of young conservatives is really awesome because, you've got the really crazy ones on the Democratic side. You got Crazy Eyes, AOC, and you got, Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib. And so it's nice to see these people that are hopefully going to give them a run for their money because, it's hard to get fired up about some old guy who's been in there for 40 years. It's a lot easier to be excited about somebody who's like a contemporary who, especially for younger voters.
Right. Right. And also in my trip across the state, so we drove through Pierre, which is South Dakota's capital, and drove by the governor's mansion. And while some of our previous governors have been a little on the uppity side, it's hard to be uppity when you have the governor's mansion. I don't know how much time Kristi Noem spends in the mansion proper, but the area surrounding, you have like low rent apartments, some of which have broken windows. And then you have the school, which is just soggy pavement. And then down from that is the women's prison. And then across the way, there's this nice little park. And then there is a used car sales lot. They're like keeping it classy, Pierre.
Who's the guy in South Dakota that you don't like? Thune? Thune is okay. He's a Republican senator. He's relatively like good, but two things I have against Thune. One, he's been in there forever. He did a little thing about, well, actually I have more than two things against him, but keeping it short, besides, all of that nice big pharma money he has in his pocket. And also he's talking about, I was in the Senate, when the Twin Towers fell. And I'm like, you're telling me patriotism. And what I'm hearing is need for term limits. So not to take. The reason I brought him up.
Right. Sorry.
Is because he has actually, I've noticed his name a couple of times. And I know I noticed it because you dislike him. So I've noticed when he comes up.
Not to say that he's totally terrible. He has fairly good, taste in suit coats. And I've seen him personally at least 3 times. So that's nice that I've seen my senator. That's good.
It works out.
He's not totally terrible, but not mega impressed.
Yeah. So, but I heard him on Fox News Rundown podcast they have. I had some family stuff going on this weekend, so I've missed like hearing the regular news. So I was trying to catch up on some stuff. And he has been super supportive of the Amy Coney Barrett hearings. Mm-hmm. He was also really against the Twitter stuff, which I noticed, the Twitter censorship. And he was
that is good.
Totally coming out against Biden and the Ukraine stuff. So I wanted to give you a heads up that he's totally not been stinking lately. Like he's done some stuff that's kind of cool. So it's good.
Oh, good. Not total garbage.
Unlike my state, which is total garbage.
Well, I think it's healthy to have a certain amount of distrust for one's political leaders. Like even if they're your guy, looking at him like, I still don't.
Yeah. Well,
I'm not.
I mean,
That Republicans are mind-numbed robots who are always rah 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 for their guy. I'm like, yeah, I voted for you, but if I had like another Republican choice, might have gone there.
right. I mean,
Not that again, he's doing good stuff. I would like to acknowledge the good stuff that he does, that I'm very pleased with that.
there's been so much negativity and there's been so many people against like the Amy Coney Barrett nomination and all of these different things that it's nice to hear some people going, no, this is okay. No, this Russia thing, not Russia, excuse me. The Twitter thing is bad. See? Well,
Oh, yeah.
yeah. And
It's subliminal messaging.
Exactly. That's the word I was going for. But no, it's just things have been so nuts that it's nice to see some Republicans who are actually acting like Republicans, because we've gotten kind of used to them, hating the president and going against, everybody, and it's just nice to see them saying, no, these things are okay. No, Twitter shouldn't be censoring people. Yeah, so that's the only reason I brought him up. And I totally got sucked into an Instagram hole today. So if you want to watch somebody who has got some video, I was laughing watching this guy's videos. He is funny. He's a veteran. He hosts a podcast called Today in America, which I've never heard, but I might listen to but I think that he got real popular on TikTok from what I understand. So all of his videos are pretty short and they're like him mocking stuff. And it's all of him going, like he's got a big thing over his head and it says liberals. Okay, Joe. Now, in the first minute, don't mess up what you're running for. I'm Joe Biden and I'm running for Senate. And he's, no. The whole thing. It's funny. I was telling Anne I was trying to do some research for this episode. And instead of doing that, I hung out on the Ricky Taylor's page for like an hour. And I just watched all his videos and I just laughed and laughed. And my kids came over and they were watching them too. And they were like, Mom, why are you laughing? This isn't funny.
This isn't that funny.
But they're young, so they don't quite get the sense of
They
humor
don't understand
yet.
the nuance of.
So if you're looking for a good laugh or something different to look at, he is a little vulgar. So if that turns you off, you might not want to check him out. But I found him quite refreshing.
And even, where humor is concerned, so I've been watching not all the Trump rallies because he's been pumping them out. But some of the Trump rallies, and nobody does better commentary on Trump than Trump. Trump is out there standing saying like, man, I could be so presidential. People are like, oh, you should be more presidential. And man, I could sit here and I could say today, and he like does the long voice out. And he's like, I could be more presidential than anybody except for Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln in the hat, that's hard to beat. I'm like, what?
He's so funny.
I know. And no, but at the end of his rallies, they always play YMCA and he always does the little awkward hand dance. And
it's a horrible dance. And it's a TikTok challenge. And if you want to laugh, look up the Trump TikTok challenge because it's so fun.
Oh, it is
so
hilarious.
Fun. It's awesome. I love his dance personally because, I saw Donald Trump Jr. responded to his dance saying, well, now I know where to get my moves from. Apparently that runs on the family.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, it is really funny. And I mean, just, down the line, him, he's in Minnesota and he's like, yeah, I'm trying to win Minnesota. Why do you think I'm standing here on this cold night? It's freezing. Like, yes. I know that's a simple point, but he's, going down the line and laughing, and he's talking about trade policy, he's talking about building the wall, he's talking about the importance of deporting people, and some of these guys, they're horrible, they're murderers, they're thugs. I don't even want to deport them, or not even. It was that he's putting them in jail and he doesn't want to jail them. Why do we have to feed them for 50 years? But whatever. That's he's like pro death penalty. I'm like, thank you, the Donald. Nobody's. And he just skips on to the next thing. And
He just moves on and whatever, no big deal.
I'm like, oh, all right. Ended up like, anyways, Trump is hilarious. That is that. But
Trump is hilarious, and I love it that he's been out on the road, and I love it that I'm not sure if you've seen the meme, but it's like the deadliest virus, a 74-year-old Batman beat it in 3 days. Like, come on, people. I think most of us are gonna be, not that it's not a real thing, but I think that most of us are gonna get through this okay. And one thing we didn't talk about super quick is the New York Times actually put out an article saying that they thought that the pandemic was going to be over sooner than expected. Did you see that?
I did not.
Yeah, I think it happened when you were on vacation. But
Oh
I was
man.
surprised that the New York Times actually said something that was kind of like positive about it. A dose of optimism. Yeah, so it came out on the 12th, so you were gone. Health experts agree with stronger leadership, the toll could have been far less. But I don't think anybody could have done any better than the president did, honestly.
No, I don't think so.
Everybody was mocking him for closing the borders when he did. So if they had kept him open, it would have been more prevalent.
Right.
So
and
whatever.
Even in the UK, where the UK where people were shut down and their airports were still open, that that's a plus British logic there. Not to diss our pals across the pond, but that was really garbage. And they're doing lockdowns and things, and their testing is still horrible. Even though their testing is horrible, but the rate of COVID is going up. So whatever they're doing for a lockdown, clearly not working. But even then, it's luckily, I mean, it's bad in the UK, but it's not Spanish flu levels. It's still not that sort of thing. The World Health Organization, our old buddies in the Chinese pocket, even they are saying that, by the way, lockdowns hurt everybody, especially the poor. And I guess the lockdowns were a bad idea. When even they get around to admitting it, then we're in big trouble.
Yeah.
And still, many states and cities are just going to do it again for funsies, I guess.
Well, it sounds like they're planning on them for over the winter, which is stupid.
Yeah, let's add some seasonal depression onto this year. That'd be so awesome. Our suicide rate isn't high enough, surely.
Well, my mother-in-law is going to probably have to have back surgery shortly, and her biggest concern about the whole thing is that she's going to have to go to rehab and we won't be able to visit her.
Right.
Because it's going to be a slow rehab, and that's going to be terrible for her. I mean, she'll be around other people, but it's not going to be her family, which is a hard thing to have to go through. I mean, It's a hard situation anyway, and then to have to go through it on your own is really, thank God for video chatting, right? Like, what else would we do? But the New York Times article does say that they think that some experts believe that it'll be over by the middle of next year. So it might get bad over the winter, but they're looking at it getting done much sooner than originally thought. So, hey, that's not terrible. So, there's still hope.
There is hope. Sorry, I was just like down. Like we know there's hope, and there's a lot of hope, but it's just how to bring up my brother's line. How long do you think the pandemic is going to last? 4 more years. That. That it's gonna.
There's the thought it'll end after the election, depending on who wins, or it will continue to drag on. We'll have to see what happens, but
yeah,
only a couple more weeks.
Right, which is exciting. Hope you all have registered to vote.
Yeah, I know. It's probably too late in most places now. I don't know. I mean, I think my deadline was a couple weeks ago. So
right, our deadline was today, but I'd already been registered to vote, but it was today.
Right.
But yeah, if you don't get out there and vote, Molly will be very disappointed in you.
Yes, because as I posted on Instagram, Republicans who don't vote elect Democrats.
They do.
So it's important, ladies and gentlemen. This is not a drill.
What happens in America is affecting the rest of the world so much, and it's a real bummer for the rest of the world. Sorry, guys. I hope Trump pulls through and everything's good. But when you have people in the Philippines and people in Australia and people in England and people in Europe and all these different countries who, again, the conservatives in all of those countries, it's very much a men of the West stand forth sort of a thing, that they're all hoping for Trump to win because they see how bad it will be if this topples. Like there's
Yep.
so much riding on this. So, you know, if you're not doing it for the Donald, do it for some cute Aussie who is trusting in you.
Right. And I saw a really excellent clip on Instagram today of a woman speaking to a group of people saying, you don't have to like Donald Trump. If you like America, if you like our freedoms, if you like the way we live, vote for Donald Trump because it will all go away. And so I know probably most everyone watching us knows this already, but it's a good reminder just the same. Can't get complacent. You can't think that there's the silent majority, because if we don't go and do our part, that silent majority isn't going to win. So that's all I have to say about it. And Anne and I will be back.
Right.
Actually, it'll probably air before this one, but we're going to do a little debate recap because why not?
Exactly.
It's a bunch of nonsense and we have to talk about it after it happens. So.
I think this will be good. I think my prediction for the debate is that Trump's going to be much more on focus. I mean, first of all, he's not coming down with COVID. But secondly, I think he's a person who can take a look at his previous mistakes and go forward in a better direction.
Right.
So I think it'll be good.
Yes, I hope it's going to be good. And Anne and I will share all of our thoughts on that as well. And remember to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell so that when we post new videos, because we usually post every Saturday, but once in a while we throw an extra one in there. So ring the bell in case we decide to add a little extra and you know what's going on. And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time.
Yes. Thank you so much. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.